Hello, in this video we're going to show you how to do some basic socket programming in Python. So we're going to learn how to open and close sockets. Then we're going to learn two different methods of sending and receiving data. One method is going to be better for binary data, where we're going to send basically byte by byte, compose our message one byte at a time. And then another is going to use a more an approach that basically turns your socket into a file in terms of how Python interacts with it. And so then we can use standard file operations to read lines of text as strings. All right, so we're going to begin first of all by importing the socket library. So Python has a built-in library called socket that we're going to need to use in order to um, be able to do socket programming. All right, now typically what we're going to do at this point is define a variable that will have our host IP address. We'll call that host. And in this case, I'm going to connect to my own computer, and I'm going to use port 54321. Port equals, and both of those will be strings like this. Okay. So then we are going to open the socket by doing this. Client socket, we'll call it, you can name your variable whatever you want, equals socket.socket. And then we're going to do socket.af underscore inet. That means that we want to use the Internet v4 address family, and socket.sock stream. So this means that we want to have our socket operate as a stream of bytes. All right. Now, this is going to define our socket, but we haven't actually connected it yet. So the next thing is actually connecting the socket. So we are going to do this. We are going to put this all into a try block. Try, and we're going to do client socket connect. And then we have to pass it a tuple with our host and port. So in order to do that, we're going to put host comma port inside of parentheses. So it'll look a little weird. We've got basically double opening parentheses, double closing parentheses with host and port. Often in Python, functions will be looking for a tuple rather than two separate data elements, and that is the case here. Okay, so this is going to connect to our socket. Now, we're going to add to, let's see, I forgot the colon after try. We are going to add a catch method. So try, and then in Python it's except. And we'll do exception as E. And we'll just do print some error occurred. And we will add the error message. So I'll make this a formatted print, and I will put the error message in here. So our exception is going to be dropped into a variable called E, and this is just going to print it out as a string. So pretty simple. And then finally, we are going to add a finally block. Remember that finally is going to execute at the end whether there was an error or not. So the last thing that we always want to do is close our socket. So we're going to do client socket dot close, and that is going to terminate the connection and get rid of our socket. Okay. Okay, I've loaded up a client or a server on my computer to connect to, and I tried running this, and I got an error because the port actually should be an integer rather than a string. So I got an exception, some error occurred. String object cannot be interpreted as an integer, and so it's actually expecting an integer for the port number. So I have corrected that. I removed the quotation marks, and now if we run this, we get no printout, which means it all ran successfully. So I could put a print statement in here, connected successfully. We know if we don't get an error on the connect, it is going to work. And so sure enough, connected successfully. Now I'm going to go over and kill my server. So I'm doing this on my other screen that you guys can't see, but I've now stopped my server. So the server is no longer listening on port 54321. And now when we run this, um, where we get it pause for a little bit, and then we get no connection could be made because the target machine actively refused it. So that's what you're going to see if there is not a server running on the port you're trying to connect to. Sometimes you might get the port blocked by a firewall as well, in which case it'll give you a message about the server being unreachable. But let me put the server back online and run the program again. And now we get connected successfully. So we know that it is working at that point. All right, so now that we've opened our connection, how do we actually send data? So I'm going to show, and I'm just going to add this to the same try block. At any point, if we get a connection, an error in our server exchange, we will just go ahead and go down here and print out the error message and then close the socket. So all of this, in this case, can just stay in the same try block. So let's say we want to send a message, and our message is going to be hello world, of course. First thing we send across the network. So we're going to do the following command. So client socket dot send all, and then we are going to send our message, and we are going to encode it with UTF-8. And then if the server is expecting, say, a null terminated message, we can add that null character to the encoding as in this way. We will do a binary quote \0 end quote. So that's saying encode this message in UTF-8 and add a null termination character to the end of the message, and then send it. Okay, so now when we do this, print message sent. In this case, if we go to run it, we get the message and we get the message sent successfully. Okay, what about if we want to receive a message back? So this is going to be a lot more tricky in using if we're looking for a null terminated string. So let's see how to go about doing this. And I'm actually not going to be able to do this and run it with the server that I have set up because it is not prepared to send back a null terminated string. But I will show you how you would do this. I'm going to give you the code, and then we would just trust that it works. If you want to experiment with this, you could write your own little server program relatively easily to test it. But here's what we're going to do. So we're trying to receive back a message. We are going to put that into a variable called data that is going to be a type byte array. So byte array is basically an array of bytes. And we are going to add to that byte array variable one character at a time while we receive it. So we are going to continue receiving until the uh, the data includes a null termination character. And here is where we are going to go. Okay, so we are going to do byte for the one byte we want to receive equals socket, SOCK dot, well, we're going to do client socket. Client socket dot RECV. So this is going to receive bytes, and we're going to say we just want to receive one byte. Okay. And next, we need to check if we don't receive anything, we're going to break. Let me move this print statement up here. Okay. And then if we get a null character, so just the same as we did up here, binary, single quote, \0, single quote. So if that's the character we get, then we're done and we can also break. And then otherwise, we want to extend our byte to into the data byte array. Data extend, and that's going to add that byte to the end of that array. Okay, so at the end of this, we should have each byte that we receive added to data, and until we either stop receiving things or until we receive a \0. Now, the final thing that we need to do is decode the message that we receive. So we'll do decoded message equals data.decode, and we're going to use UTF-8. So that's the encoding, and then we will print this out. We received a decoded message. All right, so at the end of this all, we are going to get a string of text back from the server that is going to end with \0. Hopefully, if it doesn't, and the server just stops sending us stuff, we'll still be able to handle it. We might not want to have this in here if we were expecting to receive two different pieces of data. If we needed the \0 to separate the first piece of data from the second piece of data, then we might want to not include this if not byte, and we might want to handle that in some other way. But if we go to run this, let me make sure the server is ready, and we'll see what happens. Just updating the server a little bit, the server code, to get it to try to send something back to us. And I will rerun it. All right, so we will run this. And see what we get. All right, so we sent our message connect successfully, But because the server is not set up to send back a null terminated uh, byte array message style message, um, we are just hanging up here, and we are probably caught in an endless while loop where it's simply not ever stopping receiving. Okay. Um, I can break out of this, I think, by stopping the server, and then I get an existing connection was forcibly closed by the remote host. So that triggered an error and it broke our thread. But basically, because we never received that \0, we were in a blocking state where we were just waiting for that \0 to come through, and it did not come through. All right, so let's try. The server is set up to send us a new line terminated string, however. And so we're going to switch all of this up now. Let me, before I do that, I'm going to save all of this, and let me pause the video while I'm doing this. I'm going to post all of this to Canvas so that you can see both versions of the code. Let me pause briefly while I. Okay, so I copied that over. We're now going to change this program, and right now we're coming in right at take out the extra new lines. We're coming in right at about 37 lines of code. Switching to the other method is going to be a little bit shorter and a little bit cleaner, especially on the receiving part. And so we'll compare 37 lines of code now to what we do using the file approach. All right, so let me get rid of everything from send all downwards. So we have our message that we want to send. That's not going to change, but everything about the way we send it now is going to be different. We're still in the same try except block, and we are going to do this. Actually, before we start to send, right after the connect, we are going to add a line of code right here, and it's going to be like this: socket file equals client socket make file. And we're going to put a mode in first, read write, and then we are going to put our encoding. And encoding is going to be a named parameter. Encoding equals UTF-8. So what this is doing is it's saying, I want to treat this socket as if it were a file using a read-write file, so something that I can both write to and read from, and give me that as a file handle, and I'm going to name it socket file. All right, so that lets us now do file commands. We can do socket file write, and let's do message plus, and now we're going to do, using this approach, we're going to use a null or a new line terminated string instead. This is actually what the client is expecting and looking for. Now, one thing that I don't think I can't remember if we did regularly in our Python class, but you want to do socket file flush after you do a write. And basically what this does is when we do a write, it writes it into a buffer. And once the buffer gets to a certain amount of capacity used, then the buffer data actually gets sent across the socket. And by doing flush, we're saying, don't wait, don't buffer it, go ahead and send the message now. Okay, and that's all it takes to send our hello world message. So we can add our print back in, print message sent successfully, and we're done with the sending part. All right, now the reading is going to be very simple. We're simply going to do response equals socket file readline. Okay, and because we are using new line character to terminate our strings, readline is going to read an entire line of text until it comes across that new line character. Now, if we want to strip out the new line character, we could do a .r_strip and new line like that. That'll get rid of the new line character. We don't need it. I'm going to just leave it in for right now, though. Let me get rid of that. And then we can print the message out. Print received response. And that's it. So we went from 37 lines of text where we had a much longer read section, reading it byte by byte until we found that null termination character, to the much simpler approach. Now, the reason that this works with new line terminated, but it doesn't really work with null terminated characters, is because of using this readline method. So with readline, it's looking for that new line character to end what it's reading. When it gets it, it knows it's done. And so if you had a server that is sending something that ends with a new line character, then this approach works really well and really smoothly. But if it's not going to send a new line character, then you need to go about it the other way that we looked at. Okay, let's try actually running this. And we see connected successfully. We see message sent successfully, and we received a message back. The message we sent was hello world, and the server sent back hello to you too, which is what I wanted it to send, what I programmed it to send. So mission accomplished. So hopefully you see, I mean, this is relatively easy to do. There are really just, 2 or 3 pieces of code that we've got to put together to create a socket, to connect to a server, and then to send and receive data back. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and pretty fun to be able to do. So I encourage you to go ahead and play with this and experiment a little bit. I posted up the address for the server that you all are going to be connecting to in your homework assignment, and feel free to experiment with that and make the connection and try different things and just see what happens. As you're programming, it is not going to hurt anything if you try to connect to it and do something that goes against the instructions. You're not going to break the server or hurt it in any way. So, and just experiment. You're welcome to begin by just connecting to it, opening a socket, connecting, and then closing that connection, just so that you can test that part of your code and then go on from there to add the rest. Hope this was clear. Let me know if you have any questions, and we will see you in class on Monday. Thank you.